one of the things I always try to say to young ministry wives, and well, any wife, is that ministry is not just your husband going to work over here, and ministry in church, ministry, like family is over here and church work is here. If you're in ministry, if you and your husband, and I do think the wife is called to ministry if the husband is called, there's a calling on her life. It doesn't mean she works for the church. It doesn't mean she has to do everything people don't want to do. They don't own her, but there is a mutual call. Then I think we forget sometimes that we should have a holistic view of ministry.
Okay.
By that I mean that your marriage and family life is a part of your ministry, a huge part of your ministry, not just Wednesday night Bible study or Sunday morning services or youth camp or any of those kind of things. But a holistic view of ministry means that you also include your family life. And, you know, this is not original with me. Paul said this in the pastoral epistles in 1 Timothy, that an overseer, a spiritual leader, is to be a good manager of his household. And what that means, what that tells us, is that your family is very much a part of your ministry. And when you prioritize your marriage and your children, you are modeling a godly model of marriage and family life for those to whom you minister.
That's really good.
So you need to remember that you are modeling, and how, talking about student ministry, how crucial is that teenagers, college kids, see a husband and wife who love one another, serve one another, honor the Lord together, and prioritize their family life. I mean, so much of ministry is just giving a good, godly model of marriage and children. So sometimes we don't have a holistic enough view, I think, of ministry. So I think that is one thing that we need to remember. But let's talk for a minute about if a wife feels like church work trumps her ministry. Her marriage. Okay. Right? Is that what we want to talk about that? Okay. So the first thing I would say to women, and this is because I preach this to myself all the time, get out of the martyr mindset.
Okay.
Don't go there. It's so exhausting. It takes your energy. Pity parties they're just non-productive. I should know. I have had some of the finest pity parties known to mankind, and I'm sorry no one was there. You should have been there. You would have appreciated it, I mean. But they don't get you anywhere. Get out of the martyr mindset. Just remember this. There are other vocations, such as ministry, where it's difficult to maintain a family life, regular schedule. Doctors, businessmen that have to travel frequently for their job. Politics. You're married to a politician. We're not the only ones that struggle finding this balance. There are others.
That's a good word.
So keep that in mind. Just don't let yourself go into the pity party mode. And I like to say that we should approach ministry, the call to ministry in our family life, from a position of strength.
Okay.
So if you have followed Christ, you are filled with His Holy Spirit, you have your own spiritual walk, you are strong in the Lord, then you approach this not as a clingy, needy person. You are not a weak woman.
Yeah.
You are a woman of strength. You have a walk with God. You have a calling on your life. And somebody said this a long time ago. I've kind of claimed it for my own. But don't be a drain, be a source.
Okay. Don't
be a drain on your husband. Why? Don't do that. That will not...
It won't change his heart.
Exactly. I should know. That will not change his heart. If it does change his actions, it will be short-lived, and he will resent you, because that just leads to more resentments, and that won't get you anywhere. So get rid of the martyr mindset. And one of the things I think that I love about modern day ministry couples is approaching your life and ministry as a partnership. So where Paul says we are co-laborers in the gospel. Think of that in terms of marriage. You are co-laborer. You are a partner in ministry. You are part of your husband's ministry. He is a part of your ministry. It's together. And so if you even think of it that way, that it's not so much he's going over here and you're going over here, but if you do that, you both are active in different areas, it's still, you're working together.
I love that.
In some way. So it's important to keep that in mind, that you're working together. As far as some ways that I think you can help your husband, I mentioned this verse to you out of Proverbs 31. I'm not going to bring her up. Don't worry, that woman. The other woman, the Proverbs 31 woman. But I do like that verse that says that she does him good and not harm. How can you do your husband good? Now, it's not unusual for ministers to get so carried away that they lose their balance in the sense of
that tyranny of the urgent.
Exactly. That surely was written for ministry couples. Right now, somebody needs me, and I think you always have that in ministry. So, how do you manage that? And let me say that there are always seasons where you're coming up on a big church promotion or a certain time of the year where he will spend a lot of time gone. But that should not be the norm. That's not the norm. And here's where we, I think, are called to help our husbands. Women, God gave us managerial skills. Women, and I think he started with Eve, that women have an innate ability to make a life for themselves as a single. If there are single women listening to this, you have made a life for yourself, I guarantee you. Busy doing and going and whatever you're going to do. Whether you're married, whether you're single, women they just have an instinct of knowing how to manage a family. Men just in general don't have that quite as much. I'm being so generous when I say it that way. So women are going to know, they're going to instinctively know when he needs to sit down and spend 45 minutes at the dinner table chatting with the kids. Yeah. They're going to sense that. They're going to know when a child feels emotionally distant from their father. Women will know that. And so that's when we are called to work with him and help him and not berate him and criticize him, but say, listen, what if I take this child and do this and you spend 30 minutes one-on-one with this one? Listen, women are resourceful and creative.
Right.
So creative and resourceful. And you can figure out a way to help him to make those things happen. So it's teamwork. You're working together. And criticizing or draining or whining, that gets you nowhere.
I love that, though, because if you're in this martyr mindset of, well, he's already been gone so much and now he's watching TV when I'm trying to do dinner, if you kind of have those thoughts, which even though they could be true, you just pray and you say, God, give me the resources, give me the creativity, give me an overwhelming love for my spouse that chooses, I think C.S. Lewis said, to choose this loyalty of mutual help. Help me be loyal to helping him. Help me to be, I am that helper. And even though I'm a little frustrated with him, overwhelm me with love. You love me, overwhelm me with love, and give me the creativity to say, okay, you take her and do a puzzle, and I'm going to finish dinner with him. And, give me the creativity to not just go in and say, turn on the TV. How dare you be watching TV when I'm, I definitely see how it starts with the martyr mindset, and then it goes into nagging as opposed to help me love, help me help, and restore this.
And a lot of that's exactly right. And a lot of it, I think, is rather than to say, you haven't spent any time with Jimmy, and he's needing you, he's acting out, he's whatever, say, okay, you take him. And go, I'll take care of dinner, or I'll take care of the other kids somewhere, or I'll do something to make it give him a scenario, help him figure out what to do. And I just can't emphasize that enough, that you are in ministry together. You are on the same side.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this to you earlier, a book that helped me, I wish so badly it had been written a long time ago. I would have avoided a lot of mistakes. is Sacred Influence by Gary Thomas. And it's not necessarily for ministry wives, but it's how a wife can approach her marriage and call out her husband to be his best. Not manipulate him. We're not talking about manipulation at all. We're talking about calling him to be his best for the sake of the gospel. And that was very helpful to me. Now, I do think there are some things, just some practical tips, that if he is willing to listen, one of the things I've used my whole adult life with ministry, Amy, is ask myself this question. When I have a conflict with family, something I need to do with family, and a ministry responsibility, the question I always ask myself is this something that someone else could do? Can someone else fill this position, go to that meeting? Can someone else do this? I'm the only daughter that lives near my mother, and she's in the hospital. Only I can do that. Or only I can do something that the husband needs, or I've made a commitment with him to do, or for the children, a crisis thing. Only I can do those things. And you may say, well, and I can hear a wife saying, well, that's great, but we don't have any, there's no one to fill in. Well, you know what? Call on that creativity. And I guarantee you in church, if there's not another staff member, you may be at a church where you're the only staff member, there are lay people who will step in for you. There are other staff members who will do some delegation and help your husband on that. If there's somebody, sometimes you may get to a point where if there's somebody else that could do it, let them do it. Yeah. And I say this in the kindest way possible. Get over yourself a little bit. Yeah. You're not the only leader. Yeah. Other people can fill in and let them do it. And that has been very helpful. And another way that I think is so good is to go with your husband as much as you can. Take your kids. If it's student minute, no, maybe you may not be able to take them to beach camp if you have that. I understand that. But you can be visible at places. You can be there, even if you have to sit at the back or leave and feed the baby or take a toddler out. Just being visible. Being with him, knowing who some of those people, do you know his staff members? Do you know his youth workers? Do you know the kids? Just having some kind of knowledge of his life and his work, and that's part of that mutual call of appreciation and saying, I see what you're saying now. I understand your, the stresses here. I can't stress that enough, to go with him as much as you can. And use those managerial skills that God gave you.
I think I got to call a 1 minute warning.
Okay.
Would you share the story too, real quick, about the lady who mentioned that she saw you with your family?
I had a friend who told me one time, she called me after church, our children were younger, or I saw her later that day, and she said, when your children came in and sat with you at church, I noticed that you smiled at them. And she said, and she had 4 kids. I had 2. She had 4, and they were wild as they could be. I'm the first one to give her that. And she said, I thought to myself, I never smile at my kids. I'm always on them for something. And at the time, I don't say that because I was so spiritual to smile. It really struck me that probably how many times I'd snarled at them, and people had seen me and were too nice to say something. But I've never forgotten that. That's part of that modeling that people, they just do. If you're in a position of spiritual leadership, people look to you. And use that influence wisely. Use it for the good of the kingdom. Don't complain about it. Use it for the good of the kingdom. That is a part of your ministry, prioritizing your relationship with your husband and your children for the sake of the gospel.
I love that. I hope this has been helpful today. I feel like I'm going to go back and watch it about 3 times.